Brettenbach, and I will be sharing some information with you. Just providing a little brief training and some new information about how we will be providing direct referrals to providers, how you will be doing that. So for just for your information, we do have closed captioning that's available. And if you look on your screen, there's a little icon that shows how to turn on the WebEx Assistant, and then follow the prompts to turn the closed captioning off. And then there's a way to lock participant videos in WebEx. Lock up to 6 participants to see them regardless of who is speaking. And then each person can customize their own set of pinned participants. So if you hover over the thumbnail location, you want to look, lock a participant, click on the little dots that Tom is pointing to on the screen, and then select lock a participant to this location. So that's if you want to have people locked on your screen again. Any questions on that, or is everyone able to navigate through WebEx? Okay, great.
That sounds great.
Okay, great. So we're going to ask that you remain muted unless you're asking a question. And just the meeting is being recorded, so everyone will receive a copy of the presentation afterwards. And for the sake of time, because we only have an hour we allocated, we're not going to do formal introductions, but please feel free, if you so desire, to put your name and your agency in the chat. And then if you have questions, you could interrupt Tom or myself during the time that we're speaking, but we do have just an hour, and we will be available afterwards if any of your questions are not directly answered. But some of the questions that you may have may come up in one of the other slides. So if we may ask you just to hold tight for a second. But if it's something that was not addressed, then please feel free to hang on afterwards, and we'll be available to answer any questions. Okay. So our agenda is just going to be an overview of the TRAP program, how the referral service process will work. We'll take a look at the referral portal and review that, and then we'll discuss an overview of how the billing will work, and then we'll have some times for Q&A afterwards. Okay, does anyone have any questions before we jump into it? No questions. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Tom.
Hello, everyone. So if I tend to go a little fast, don't hesitate to ask questions or to ask me to slow down. I will be glad to review it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, and it will be some review for some of you, but I just want to make sure that we understand and revisit this information, especially since the one item here, the income eligibility, has increased to 60% AMI. It used to be 50. So one of the criteria is that a person must fall within 60% of the area median income or lower. Verification will be required. However, the referring agency is not required to obtain that verification. You just need to ask the participant or the person, your household that you're referring, what their income is and determine whether or not they would be eligible based on that. And you'll have a copy of the slide, so you'll be able to see this chart here that we've included that says what the 60% area median income will be based on the household size. Now, this does change annually, but it's not going to be pertinent to this current funding, because it won't change before you have a chance to spend out the money by the end of the year. Financial hardship is the second criteria due to COVID. Now, this could be directly or indirectly related to COVID. And so it's kind of a broad understanding of what those effects are. And then such as unable to find work because of COVID. Maybe they didn't lose their job because of COVID, but maybe it's been difficult to find work, or it's been limited, like the hours in work are limited or something like that. So it could be a variation of, or their expenses have been higher because of some reason related to COVID. So verification will be required. Usually it's the form of a self-declaration or an unemployment benefit verification that would show that they're unemployed. And then the third criteria for being eligible will be the risk of becoming homeless or the facing housing instability. So sometimes, oftentimes verification for that would be a letter from the landlord saying they're behind on the rent or something like that. So again, you don't have to obtain that information verification from the client or the household that you're referring themselves, but the provider, the housing provider, will be requesting that on their end once they receive the referral and contact the participant. Any questions on eligibility criteria? Right. Hopefully this is all familiar. And then services provided as similar as earlier this year, it still remains to be 12 months worth of assistance for rent or utilities. That could be a combination of 3 months of future rent plus up to 3 months of future rent plus arrears, or it could be all arrears. Generally, the housing providers will focus mainly on the arrears first and get those taken care of, and then and if there's any additional months that they may be eligible, they could pay up to an additional 3 months for a total of 12 months max. So, households who receive ERAP assistance are eligible for funding as long as the same months of assistance are not provided. So some of you had provided similar referral services on the ERAP program. This is going to be basically the same procedure. If they received ERAP assistance, that does not disqualify them from receiving TRAP or TRA assistance, because it's two different programs. But we just can't pay for that in the same month in which they've already received assistance, assuming that those months have already been paid. So one-time access for the so the TRAP, we use those terms interchangeably. That's basically the same program, because they originate from the Treasury Department and are the same, coming from the same place, so, or the same award. So the utility assistance can be paid if paid to the landlord. There will be the provider will collect that information and see about including that as part of rent. If they owe money to CPU, Clark Public Utilities, for electrical services, that may also be they may also be eligible to receive assistance under this program. You will not get an additional if you refer someone to CPU, it will not get additional payment for the additional referral, but it's still good information to have for your households to know that they can reach out to CPU for more assistance. Other types of fees owed to the landlord may or may not be eligible costs. This will be determined by the providers once the household's case is reviewed. Any questions on those slides so far? Great. So referral services. So first thing you want to do is you want to try to determine as best you can whether or not somebody has already received TRAP assistance. The difficulty there is there was a time when ERAP was up and running and they were receiving assistance through ERAP and TRAP at the same time. So just, and they may not, your household may not know which service they provide or which funding paid for their rent. So it's a chance that even if you ask them and they say, yes, I received assistance, that they still may be eligible because it's a different program. So with that, but we could safely say that in the last 6 months, ERAP has not been up and running. So if they've received assistance in the last 6 months, then through Treasury rental assistance or for the Council for the Homeless the hotline portal, then they would have been assisted with the TRAP funding. So you would not refer them if that was the case. If they're unsure, go ahead and refer them. The receiving agency will verify the household has not previously received Treasury rent assistance. And then if the household has already received the rental assistance, they will inform you of that. So you won't get credit or reimbursed for referring somebody who has already received assistance. So then you want to ask them the 3 eligibility criteria, find out whether or not, they're below 60% AMI, whether or not they have financial hardship due to COVID, and they have a risk of being homeless or facing housing instability. So that's the general screening criteria prior to entering their information into the portal. Is there any questions about this? Especially around trying to determine whether somebody has already received assistance?
Would you repeat the portion about 6 months? What hasn't happened for 6 months?
So there's previous to TRAP, which is the current program you're referring to, there was the ERAP program, and that has discontinued over the last 6 months. It hasn't been operating. So if somebody has received assistance in the last 6 months, then it's most likely would have been TRAP funds. So they may not be eligible.
Thank you.
Okay. And then program components. So complete the Treasury Rental Assistance online referral portal, which Sunny is going to be joining us in a minute and doing that, talking about that a little bit further. Portal is for agency use only. Do not provide it to the households, please. And due to anticipated demand, please give the housing programs at least 2 weeks to contact the household, and only submit 1 referral form once per household. If you submit it more than once, most likely just slow down the process. So with that, I'm going to introduce Sunny Wonder from the Council from the Homeless.
Hello, thanks for having me. So I'm going to just be walking you through the actual process. It follows what Tom has already shared, but literally what you're going to be seeing. If you can do the next slide. So this is what the form, when you get that link, that is the link that you're going to be going through. There's a bit of a narrative there. I don't need to read it to you all. But this is going to be the piece that you see up at the top. It says partner agency application. As a reminder, I definitely want to reiterate what Tom just said. Please make sure that this is a link that you are not sharing outside of your process. So if you are the individual that is doing it, please don't share it with a household that you're helping go through this process. I see that the text is pretty small, but I will just kind of walk through the process. If you have any questions or I'm going too fast, definitely please tell me and I'm happy to repeat it. The Referral questions, beautiful. Thank you, Tom, for putting it onto in bigger print. So these are the questions. So with the 6 months, again, if a household isn't sure, we just want to make sure that you are aware there's potential possibility, because we have worked through many households that have sought assistance. It's possible that they have received this assistance in the past. So we want to make sure that we're asking those questions and that you are aware it's possible the household has already been assisted. Truly, if they're not sure and they have, and for most of us, keeping track of TRA and TRAP and ERAP is a lot of work. So if you're not sure, it's likely the household isn't sure. So it's totally fine to refer them, but just knowing it's a possibility that the partner agency, the agency you're working with, is gonna reach out and say, hey, just wanna let you know, it looks like they've already been served in the past. The information that we're asking for, we're trying to keep it fairly basic, because we do know some of those qualifying information that we're gathering, that we're asking for of households, some of it is kind of complicated. So really our goal is to get really good contact information and kind of an overview of the situation. So first and last name, the household's phone number and email address. So making sure to give us the most accurate, up-to-date information and sharing that timeline. We definitely have some households that maybe their phone number will change. And my biggest thing would be reaching out to that point of contact to let them know if you are aware, because we don't want to miss contacting folks. But that is the information that we'll be asking. Households' preferred language, please do let us know, or preferred method of communication. We definitely want to be reaching out with the tools that we need to best communicate. So please do fill that out if you have someone who would be more comfortable speaking in a different format. Number of bedrooms in the rental unit, as well as the monthly rental amount. This is helpful for us, just super helpful information for us to gather for the agency to have. The number of months of rent owed, we do ask that. It is possible that you will have households that owe more than 12 months, but just getting a look at the number of months of rent that are owed is really helpful. The rental address, city and zip code, as well as the full address. So that is going to be really helpful for the agency as well. So it's super important that that information is put in there correctly. The next slide. Any questions there? I think that's it.
I just want to reiterate that the items here in asterisks are things that are going to be required, and the other items are preferred. So as I think that it would be best if everything was filled out. It's just, I think that those things in asterisks are definitely required. The one benefit of having the address there is that there may be an opportunity for some people to be served faster if they're live within a certain census tract. So we can identify the information before we even contact them. So it may help speed up the process for them. So I'm going to turn it over now back to Mary.
Okay, so I just want to make a note that Rebecca made a comment in the chat about over 2,600 households have received the latest Treasury assistance so far and are not eligible for assistance. So you can see there's a lot of families that have already received the service. So it is important to have all of that information so that the providers can determine if the households are eligible. So we're going to talk a little bit about the PRF form, the payment request form, and a lot of you are should be familiar with the form, but what has happened is we've added a line item for referrals, and that's the at $250 per referral. So when you're completing the form, you have to indicate how many referrals were made in that billing period. So in the myself or Tom or Rebecca, whoever you're working with, one of us will pull a report, and from that we'll be able to verify the number of submissions that you actually referred. So you'll only get reimbursed for submitting one referral per household. Excuse me. And you will not be able to be reimbursed for anything after December 31st, 2021 is when your contract ends. So please be mindful of that, making sure that you're submitting your PRF forms in a timely manner, and opportunities for additional referrals will be coming in the new year. But as far as the reimbursements for this funding, January 10th, 2022 is the all invoices. That's the deadline for all invoices to have been submitted to the county. So nothing after January 10th, 2022 will be processed. And if you're having some type of difficulty, then make sure you are reaching out to your program coordinator who's working with you to let them know if there's any issues or concerns. So now we have an opportunity for any questions. So does anyone have any questions at this point?
I do. This is Darla. So are you going to be emailing us this PowerPoint? And are we going to get new flyers and stuff to send out?
So we are going to be emailing you a copy of this PowerPoint. We have not discussed having new flyers created. The only difference between the program previously and this one is the 60%. So we'll have to get back to you on whether or not we're plan on having new flyers made, because that's going to be a coordinated effort.
Yeah, we don't need hard copies, only electronic copies. And we can make our own, but we want to make sure that they're accurate with all your information. So.
Hey, Darla, this is Rebecca. Yes, because you're going to have them go through your process wherever the best way to contact you is, I would highly recommend creating your own flyer and then just sending it to us for a quick review to make sure that it's all accurate information. And then you can use that for your social media, for your email blast, for all of that. So people actually contact you directly to do the referral process into the program.
Okay, great. And so then do we send all of that to you, Rebecca, for review, the flyer?
You'll send it to your program contact for that's on your contract, and you'll be getting your updated contract soon that have the referrals in there, the allotted funding for the referrals that you indicated that your agency was interested in doing. And then that person will be the best one to contact to do a quick review of that flyer. And we'll make sure that we review that quickly and get it back out to you, because we know we're on a tight deadline for you to get those referrals in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we've already started and processed the contract modifications. So those should be, like Rebecca said, to you really soon. So but they really should match what, like Rebecca said, again, they really should match what it is that you indicated you were interested in doing. So does this seem similar to ERAP for those who did ERAP? Good. We try to do that on purpose, want to make it as simple as possible and as similar as possible. So it was an easy process. So
This is Rebecca again. I just wanted to reiterate that last date that's on the billing because that is super important and it's a really tight turnaround from you might be submitting referrals on December 31st. We understand that. And it's a really tight turnaround to get those invoices into us. This is a deadline of commerce. It's not our, we have to have our information in and done and submitted to commerce in time so that the reimbursements can go through. So just wanted to reiterate how important that January 10th deadline is for getting your invoices to us. One nice thing is that you don't have to worry about any backup documentation for the referral part. Just like with ERAP, we'll pull a report through the Council for the Homeless, and we need to just indicate how many referrals you actually did, and we'll do that part. So that's really easy. If you're doing more marketing, the emails, the social media, of course, we will need the backup documentation for those services.
Thank you for
Any
that,
additional
Rebecca.
questions regarding the referral process or the billing process? Right. Again, you'll have a copy of this for your review and also a copy of the recorded video. So
I have a question. If somebody is in subsidized housing, can they qualify for these funds?
yes, they can. They would only cover the portion in which is owed that the subsidy did not cover.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question, Darla. And people that are, when we have households that are living in, multiple households in one unit, they're, with an informal rental agreement, just like with ERAP, those are, households are also eligible for the assistance. Undocumented households are eligible. We do not ask any citizenship questions. We do, unfortunately, Treasury does require a lot of documentation for the program, which I know can be overwhelming for households, especially those that don't trust government services. And so we're going to really need to work with you guys and rely on you guys to help them understand why that information is needed so that we can get them the assistance that they deserve. But we do have to have documentation of all of those components that Tom talked about earlier.
And as a last resort, agencies may be able to do a self-declaration under certain circumstances, but it would be a last resort. So if somebody seems discouraged because they don't have access to any documents, refer them anyways, please. And so I see that Juanita came on just a little bit late. I'm willing to stay after and review a few slides with you, unless there's other questions.
I do have a question. This is
Sure.
Karen. For people who are not quite sure if they utilize the ERAP or the TRAP, is there a quicker way to find out before we go through the whole application process only to find out that they can't utilize the service? Is there some way we can find out if they have?
Sunny, do you know of any way in your end that can happen? HMIS should be able to tell you.
Yeah, I will have to think through. Karen, I think that that's a good question and definitely want to acknowledge that that would be a long process. I don't necessarily want to volunteer anyone right now before thinking through a potential process. So what perhaps I can connect with a county and kind of think through some potential options because that's fair to kind of want to know a process to go through. I'm sure you have lots of folks that are seeking assistance and honestly don't know. That's fair. So maybe we could have a conversation about that and brainstorm some options. The easy way is potentially, I mean, calling the housing hotline or something, but I know that my team wouldn't necessarily be able to say for sure one way or another. So I just want to make sure that there's a good process that you can depend on, Karen and everybody else who's wanting to find that out. So maybe we'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
And when I mentioned HMIS, I was thinking if they had access on their end, but they won't necessarily have access on their end. So I guess that would not be, unless you do, then you can verify it through that.
And Karen, you're going to be partnered with Bridgeview, and I know you have a really close relationship with them. So that's another opportunity is once we send out your information and we get you your connection, your housing provider, then that's also something you might talk with them with, like, what would they prefer? Because that's going to put the extra work on that agency also. So that would be a good conversation to have with them if we can't come up with a viable option for all of the agencies. You will have a contact at each of the agency that you're paired with, so that if you have households that come back saying, I haven't been assisted yet, or they have additional questions and they're relying on you and the trusting relationship that they have with you, then you can contact your housing partner to find out what's going on. Again, I want to reiterate that the housing providers do need a little bit of time to be able to process they're taking on your referrals along with referrals from other agencies in the general wait list. So we just want to, give them a little time to process it. That's why we ask for the 2 weeks. But if the household has been waiting for a couple of weeks, feel free to contact them. And then you can also contact them for any of those other questions that might pop up from the household.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, we want to thank everybody for coming. We know it was a quick overview, and hopefully it's, almost as easy as ERAP. I know this program does require extra documentation. No, it's not us. We're not doing this. It is required for us to do the program. And don't hesitate to reach out to your program coordinator if you have any questions. We'll get you your updated contract soon. We'll get you your updated payment request forms soon, along with claim vouchers to go along to submit your full invoices. And we'll let you know who is your partner housing agency. We tried to pair you with the agency that you were with last time. It didn't work for everybody, but it was really close. But we'll make sure you know who that is and how to contact them. And so, yes, thank you all for being here. We'll get you the PowerPoint out. And if you have questions, just let us know. Thank you for being an outreach partner. We really appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
I'm going to end the recording.